Of all the teachings the Buddha gave, one towers above the rest, not because it's more important, because it contains everything else. Every doctrine you've ever heard about Buddhism, karma, rebirth, non-self, emptiness, nirvana, they're all expressions of this single insight. Dependent origination. Paṭiccasamuppāda in Pali. The Buddha said in the Mahahathipadapama Sutta, "Whoever sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma. Whoever sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination." This isn't poetry, it's a precise statement. See this, and you see everything. Miss this, and you miss the entire point. Dependent origination is the mechanism by which suffering arises, and the mechanism by which suffering ends. It's the blueprint of your experience, the architecture of reality itself, and almost nobody understands it. At university, my Buddhist studies professors mentioned this teaching in passing, then moved on. Like teaching astronomy without explaining gravity, I found that bizarre. Years later, I understood why they avoided it. This teaching is dangerous to encounter unprepared. The Buddha's closest disciple, Ananda, once told him, "Master, this doesn't seem that complicated. I think I understand it." The Buddha's response was sharp. "Don't say that, Ananda. Deep is this teaching and deep its appearance. It's because of not understanding and not penetrating this teaching that beings remain trapped in the rounds of rebirth." Right now, the 12 processes are running in the background of your mind, 12 links in a chain, generating everything you experience. Every thought, every emotion, every action you take, every moment of suffering, all of it, the output of this algorithm. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep ending up here? Why do the same patterns repeat no matter what I change? You're about to find out. If you're willing to look, really look, everything changes. I'm Peter. If you watched my video on the 5 aggregates, you know I occasionally do longer explorations of Buddhist philosophy. This is one of those. We're spending the next 40 minutes on Paṭiccasamuppāda. I've mentioned this teaching in dozens of videos, but never explained it fully. Buddhism and emptiness, karma and rebirth, the Four Noble Truths, they all point back to this. In my enlightenment video, we explored what waking up means. Today we're exploring why we're asleep in the first place. This isn't background listening material. You'll need your full attention. But give it that attention, and what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you see yourself, your life, and what's actually happening. We're mapping the mechanism that creates suffering and the mechanism that ends it. Before we explore the 12 links, you need to understand the principle underneath everything. Most people think reality is a collection of separate objects. There's you, there's your phone, there's your thoughts, there's other people. Separate things bumping into each other. The Buddha discovered something radically different. Reality isn't objects, it's relationships, not things but processes, not nouns, but verbs. Can you have up without down? Can you have front without back? Can you have self without other? These aren't separate objects that happen to be related. They're two sides of one coin. They arise together, or not at all. This is dependent origination in its simplest form. From the Nidana Samyutta, when this exists, that comes to be. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. Everything you experience right now, your thoughts, emotions, sensations, even your sense of being, you, all of it exists only in relationship to something else. Remove the conditions, and the experience vanishes. Why this matters to you. Your suffering doesn't happen randomly. It's not fate. It's not punishment from the universe. It's the predictable output of a process, an algorithm running in the background of your mind. The Buddha mapped this algorithm with 12 steps, 12 links in a chain. Understanding how the chain works shows you exactly where your suffering comes from and where to break the chain. This separates Buddhism from other spiritual traditions. We're not talking about vague concepts. We're talking about a precise map of cause and effect. The Buddha was like a master mechanic, showing you exactly which 12 gears in the machine create the experience of suffering. Traditionally, the Buddha describes 12 links in the Avijjapakkhaya Sutta, found in Samyutta Nikaya 12.17. Avijja, ignorance. Sankhara, karma formations. Vijnana, consciousness. Namarupa, name and forms, body mind. Salayatana, six sense media. Phassa, contact. Vedana, feeling. Tanya, craving. Upadana, clinging. Bhava, becoming, existence. Jati, birth. Jaramarana, aging and death. You don't need to keep all 12 in your head separately. Consider them as three big movements. First movement, confusion and grasping, ignorance, craving, and clinging, the defilements that cloud your mind. Second movement, the actions confusion produces, karma formations and becoming, what you do when you're caught in delusion. Third movement, the results you have to live through, consciousness, body, mind, the six senses, contact, feeling, birth, aging, and death, the world that arises from your actions. These three movements feed into each other endlessly. A quick note, this presentation follows the Theravada tradition's reading of dependent origination. Mahayana schools interpret some links differently, particularly consciousness. I'm staying with the early suttas. We're going to walk through all 12 links, starting from what you feel most directly and working back to the root. I'll present these to you using the Avijjapakkhaya Sutta. In this text, a monk challenges the Buddha's non-self teaching. The monk keeps asking, "But Master, whose suffering? Whose birth? Whose ignorance?" The Buddha doesn't answer directly. He walks the monk through the 12 links. By the end, the monk stops asking whose, he simply bows in silence, because he finally understood. As we go through these links, I'll show you what each link means in Buddhist terms, how it appears in your actual life, and why it matters for ending suffering. Some of this will sound strange at first. Give it a chance. By the end, you'll see patterns in your life you never noticed before. The sutta begins with a distraught monk approaching the Buddha. "Master, you teach non-self. There is no permanent you, but you also teach liberation from suffering, old age, and death. Whose suffering are we talking about? And who gets liberated?" The Buddha doesn't answer the question. Instead, he addresses the thinking behind it. The question whose suffering is invalid. Rather, when there is birth as a condition, suffering, aging, and death follow. The Buddha refuses to answer a bad question. He won't tell you who suffers. He tells you how suffering appears. He replaced who with how. He replaced the notion of a self with the notion of relationship. These are the final two links, jati, birth, and jaramarana, aging and death. They're exactly what they sound like. The Buddha isn't being metaphorical. He means actual birth into existence and the inevitable aging and death that follows. Why start at the end? Because this is what we're trying to escape. The Buddha's entire teaching aims at liberating us from this cycle. You might object, "I'm already born, so what can I do about it?" Remember, this isn't only about your physical birth 30 years ago or 80 years ago. Every moment, something is being born in your experience. A thought arises, an emotion appears, a desire kicks in. Each has its own birth, aging, and death. Watch your mind right now. Thoughts come into existence. They age. They lose intensity. They die. They disappear. This whole cycle happens constantly. Birth, aging, death, arising and passing every moment. You can't stop the cycle by avoiding it. You can only understand it. And in understanding, find the way out. Clearly, Master, birth is the condition for death, but isn't it a self that gets born? Whose birth do you mean? The Buddha replies, the question whose birth is misleading. Rather, birth occurs when there is existence as a condition. Bhava, often translated as becoming or existence, is a complex term. In the canonical texts, bhava refers to kama bhava, the process of becoming through volitional action, and upapati bhava, rebirth existence in the three realms of Buddhist cosmology. The sense realm, our physical world, the form realm, and the formless realm. These are the planes where karma generates sentient beings. The Buddha's point is straightforward. For birth to occur, the parameters of existence must be in place. But let me use modes of existence as a way to feel this in day-to-day life. You're deeply absorbed in work. That's one mode of being. You're in love, completely different mode. You're depressed, another mode entirely. These aren't just feelings, they're different worlds you inhabit, each with its own rules, its own sense of time, its own possibilities. That's bhava, the realm you're operating in, and each realm has its own kind of birth and death happening within it. But whose existence do you mean, Master? I exist while my imaginary brother does not. It is a self that exists or not, isn't that so? The Buddha replies, your thinking is mistaken. Rather, existence occurs when clinging is present as a condition. Now we enter deep waters. Why would existence depend on clinging? The Pali word for clinging is upadana, which means fuel. The Mahatanasankaya Sutta compares the unenlightened mind to a fire that constantly needs fuel to keep burning. There are 4 types of fuel your mind feeds on. Clinging to sensuality. The mind feeds on sensual stimulation, scrolling, eating, sex, entertainment, chasing pleasure to cover the void. Clinging to views, opinions, beliefs, narratives. Many give up bodily pleasure only to become addicted to doctrine. Clinging to practices, maintaining a way of life, diet, routine, spiritual identity as a good person. Clinging to a self-idea, the subtlest fuel. The belief you are a separate, permanent self, the master narrative, and your key source of suffering. How clinging shows up. Imagine you've been ghosted by someone you're deeply into. You check your phone, no message. Your mind immediately starts feeding. You cling to views, they're playing games, or I'm not good enough. You cling to sensuality, scrolling through their photos, replaying conversations. You cling to practices. If I post the right thing, they'll notice. You cling to a self-idea. I'm the person who got rejected. Your entire existence shifts. You're now inhabiting the realm of rejected lover. Time moves differently. You can't focus at work. Food tastes like nothing. Sleep becomes impossible. You're not the same person you were a week ago. That's clinging creating existence. In the Buddha's framework, clinging doesn't just color your experience. It drives the very mode of being you inhabit. What do you cling to most? Your work, your status, your relationships, your spiritual identity, your political views, your body image. Your entire life orbits around these objects of clinging. You make decisions to protect them. You feel threatened when they're challenged. You derive your sense of identity from them. This clinging isn't a habit. In this framework, it's what creates your mode of existence. Different clingings create different modes of being. The monk isn't satisfied. I see, Master, but if a commoner clings to his possessions, it is he himself that clings, no? Whose clinging do you mean? The Buddha, the question whose clinging is invalid. Rather, when there is craving as a condition, clinging arises. Tanha, craving, is the state of wanting your present experience to be different than what it is. The Buddha describes 6 classes of craving, one for each sense organ: eyes, ears, tongue, skin, nose, and mind. The mind is your sense organ for mental objects, thoughts, memories, fantasies. Craving for images, sounds, tastes, textures, smells, and mental content. When this craving reaches a certain threshold, it hardens into clinging. This is how addiction forms. Right now, as you listen to this, subtle preferences run in the background. Get to the point. That's craving for different mental content. This is interesting, I want more. That's craving for pleasant mental experience. You shift in your chair, craving for different physical sensations. Most of your day is driven by these tiny cravings: checking email, craving for different experience, eating when you're not hungry, craving for pleasant sensations, arguing with someone, craving to be right. How much of your life revolves around pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain? That's tanha, and when it intensifies, it becomes upadana. Link 7, Vedana, feeling. I see the truth in this, but whose craving do you mean? A villager craves a woman, a nun craves the Dhamma. Are these not different selves craving different things? The Buddha, the question whose craving is invalid. Rather, when feeling is present as a condition, craving arises. Vedana, feeling, is a technical term in Buddhism. It's not emotion. It's the automatic interpretation of experience as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This happens before you even think about it. Your mind takes raw sensory data and instantly tags it. Good, bad, or meh. Pleasant feeling triggers craving for more. Unpleasant feeling triggers craving for less. Neutral feeling triggers craving for something more interesting. Watch this happen in real time. Someone compliments you. Immediately there's a pleasant feeling tone. Before you consciously register it, craving kicks in. More of that. Someone criticizes you. Unpleasant feeling. Instant craving. Make this stop. You're sitting in traffic. Neutral feeling. Within seconds you reach for your phone. Craving for a more interesting experience. The feeling itself isn't the problem. The Buddha doesn't say, eliminate all feeling. Understanding that feeling automatically triggers craving creates space between the two. That's where freedom begins. If you remember only one thing from today before you react, ask yourself, is this pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? That alone starts to reveal the machinery. The monk, patience tested, raises his voice. But Master, when I feel frustrated at not understanding your words, it is I who feel this, and not Sariputta. Whose is that feeling you speak of? The Buddha, the question whose feeling is mistaken. Rather, when there is contact as a condition, feeling arises. Facet contact is the conscious coming together of sense organ and sense object. The moment you hear my voice, that's ear contact. The moment you grasp the meaning, that's mind contact. Contact requires consciousness. If you fall asleep listening to this, sound waves still hit your eardrums. But there's no ear contact. You're not consciously registering it. Understanding contact is essential for liberation. We think we're addicted to objects. I'm addicted to smoking. I'm addicted to my phone. I'm addicted to this person. That's inaccurate. You're addicted to the feeling that arises at contact with these objects. Not the cigarette itself, the pleasant feeling at tongue contact with smoke. Not the phone, the interesting feeling at eye contact with the screen. Not the person, the pleasant feeling at mind contact with thoughts of them. This is why mindfulness practice focuses on contact. A text message appears, normally see message, pleasant feeling, craving, grab phone. It happens in a split second. With mindfulness, see message, pause, observe pleasant feeling arising, observe craving arising, choose. You're not fighting the craving or suppressing it, you're seeing it clearly. When you see it clearly, its power over you weakens. This is where the chain begins to crack. The chain is becoming less abstract. We've gone from psychology and cosmology to your actual eyes, ears, nerves, and breathing. Yes, Master Gautama, but there is my ear contact and your eye contact, his mind contact, and her skin contact. It is the self that has contact. The Buddha. To say it is the self that has contact is misguided. Rather, when the six sense media are present as a condition, contact arises. Salayatana, the six sense media, are simply our six sense organs. Eyes, ears, tongue, nose, skin, and mind. These are the gates through which reality becomes known. No sense organs, no contact. No contact, no experience. Someone who loses their hearing, suddenly an entire dimension of contact is gone. No more ear contact means no more sound-based feelings, no more sound-based cravings, no more sound-based clinging. Their mode of being fundamentally changes. Everything you call your life depends on this fragile, temporary infrastructure. You don't own these sense organs. You don't control them. They're conditions that allow contact to occur. When they malfunction or disappear, your world collapses with them. But Master, my eye is different from your eye. I want to know what is the self that sense media belong to. The Buddha. The question what self do sense media belong to is invalid. Rather, when there is the body-mind as a condition, there are the six sense media. Namarupa, literally name and form, refers to the psychophysical system we call a person. For clarity, I'll translate it as body-mind. Rupa, form or body, is the physical elements: earth, water, fire, air, the material stuff. Nama, name or mind, is the mental phenomena: feeling, perception, intention, attention. The Buddha doesn't say a body and a mind or a body with a mind. He says body-mind, one integrated whole. The physical and mental are two dimensions of one process. Modern medicine is still catching up to this insight. You experience this unity constantly. You're anxious, your chest tightens, your breathing shallows, you're excited, your heart races, your eyes widen, your mind speeds up. One process expressing itself through different dimensions. When this body-mind is healthy and well-conditioned, the sense organs function properly. When it's damaged or defective, sense organs malfunction. They arise together, and when they fall apart, your world falls apart with them. But Master, this body-mind we call Siddhartha and that body-mind we call Ananda. Is the body-mind the self? Or does it belong to the self? Or is the self something different from the body-mind? The Buddha, your questions are off the mark. Rather, when there is consciousness as a condition, the body-mind arises. Here we arrive at something profound. The mainstream view today is that consciousness is produced by the brain. We see neural correlates of consciousness, so we assume the brain generates it. The Buddha, avoiding assumptions, sticks with the facts of experience. And the fact is, the body-mind only ever appears as content of consciousness. Playing a video game, we never imagine the screen exists inside our character. We never think when our character dies, our screen will disappear. We know the character and game world exist as content on the screen. But once we close the game, we forget this principle. We assume our consciousness is contained within our body or brain. We assume when the body dies, consciousness ends. But we keep failing to notice the body-mind only ever appears as content of consciousness. The Buddha also recognizes consciousness seems to require some psychophysical system as support. He explicitly says consciousness and body-mind mutually condition each other. This is the only link where he describes a two-way relationship. The Buddha gives us a mysterious simile in the Nalakalapa Sutta. He compares consciousness to a sunbeam and body-mind to what the sunbeam lands on. Where does the sunbeam land? On the wall, Lord. If there's no wall. On the ground, Lord. If there's no ground. On the water, Lord. If there's no water. Does not land, Lord. The Buddha says where there is no craving, consciousness does not land. There is no alighting of body-mind. What if you're not a body that has consciousness, but consciousness that has taken the form of a body-mind? Now, before your mind reaches for a new belief like, I am pure consciousness, be careful. The early texts don't spell out a metaphysics of some eternal, pure awareness. They stay pragmatic. Think of this as a metaphor to loosen your identification with body and story, not a doctrine about a hidden true self. Your entire sense of self, your name, your history, your personality, appears in consciousness. Never the other way around. You might say, I'm aware of being aware, but even that meta-awareness appears in consciousness. You never get outside consciousness to find the real you. There's only consciousness and its contents. And that uncertainty, that not knowing, is the first step toward freedom. But whose consciousness do you mean? I have my consciousness and my mother has her consciousness. In fact, it seems we are nothing other than consciousness. The true self must be pure awareness. The Buddha. You lose yourself in speculation. When there are karma formations as a condition, consciousness arises. Sankhara. Karma formations means the will's intentional production of karma. Right now, watching this video is a karma formation. You chose this over something else. That choice has consequences. There are 3 channels for creating karma: body, speech, and mind. Through actions, words, and thoughts, we produce karma that's wholesome, unwholesome, or neutral. This karma determines future experience in this life and beyond. Why do karma formations condition consciousness? Karma works like an algorithm. The content you consume determines what you get recommended. What you do, say, and think determines what you experience next. Acting violently creates a violent life. Speaking kindly creates kindness around you. All you experience is the fruit of past karma. Imagine you lost your job. You got fired. The moment it happens, shock, anger, shame, that's Vedana feeling. Unpleasant. Craving kicks in immediately. This shouldn't have happened. I need this to not be real. Clinging forms around your identity as successful person or failure. Your entire existence shifts. You're now inhabiting the realm of unemployed. Time moves differently. Your relationships change. Your self-image crumbles. But here's what most people miss. How you respond, what you do, say, and think in this moment. That's sankhara, karma formations. These formations are creating your future consciousness. Spend the next month consumed by resentment, blaming everyone, spiraling into bitterness. You're programming tomorrow's consciousness to notice injustices, threats, reasons to be angry. Spend the next month reflecting, learning, adapting, being kind to yourself. You're programming tomorrow's consciousness differently. You're not a passive receiver of experience. You're actively creating the algorithm that generates your experience. What kind of future are you creating right now? The thoughts you're thinking, the words you're speaking, the actions you're taking, these are forming your future consciousness. But master, karma formations too must have an owner. I have my thoughts, you have your words. Surely there must be a self who produces and owns their karma. The Buddha remains silent. With great compassion, he looks into the monk's eyes. Then, the ideas my karma and his karma are misguided, my friend. Rather, when there is ignorance as a condition, karma formations arise. We arrive at the first link, avijja, ignorance. In Buddhism, ignorance doesn't mean not knowing facts, it means existential delusion, not understanding the Four Noble Truths. First Noble Truth, everything conditioned is unstable and can't permanently satisfy. This doesn't mean life is only misery. It means the very nature of conditioned existence involves dissatisfaction. Second Noble Truth, dissatisfaction arises from craving, the very chasing of satisfaction in a world where nothing is stable. That's the feedback loop, keeping beings trapped. Third Noble Truth, while there's no final satisfaction to be discovered in the conditioned world, final satisfaction is possible. There is a way to become free. Fourth Noble Truth, the Eightfold Noble Path, the pathless path leading to nirvana. Ignorance means not seeing that this chain exists, that craving drives it, that it can stop, and that there is a path, the Eightfold Path, that weakens the links. When there's ignorance of these truths, we chase satisfaction in a world of dissatisfaction. This creates karma formations. We act, speak, think with the goal of finding happiness out there. And this perpetuates the whole cycle. When ignorance ends, when the truths are fully realized, no more karma formations arise in the old way. Action still happens. The Buddha taught for 45 years after enlightenment, but it's like an apple tree giving fruit. There's no separate tree trying to produce apples. There's the natural flow of cause and effect. Almost everything you do is based on ignorance. You're seeking satisfaction in your career, your relationships, your possessions, your spiritual practice, even in watching this video. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the way the unenlightened mind works. Are you ready to see this? Not intellectually agree with it, but actually observe how you're chasing satisfaction all day long. When you see it clearly, when you see the futility of the search, something shifts, not because you force it, but because ignorance can't survive being fully seen. After the Buddha says this, the monk doesn't ask, whose ignorance? He simply bows in silence. Why? Because he finally understood. The very question, whose ignorance is the ignorance the Buddha is describing. The assumption that there's a someone who has ignorance, who has karma, who has experience. That assumption is the root of the whole chain. Dependent origination can only operate while ignorant of itself. It's like a nightmare that can only continue while you're asleep. The moment you realize you're dreaming, the dream begins to dissolve. So far, we've followed the chain piece by piece, but the Buddha didn't present this to give you a list. He gave it to show you a system. a natural question arises. How do these 12 links fit together? Not as a linear chain. The Buddha gives us a perfect simile in the Upayanti Sutta. Dependent origination is like when the heavens rain on a mountaintop, and the water flows downhill to fill the hollows, creeks, and gullies. As they become full, they fill the pools. The pools fill the lakes fill the streams fill the rivers, and as the rivers become full, they fill the ocean. And then he completes the cycle. The great ocean rising causes the rivers to rise. The rivers rising cause the streams to rise. The streams cause the lakes cause the creeks cause the rain. This is the Earth's water cycle. The 12 links aren't a linear chain, they're local phenomena within a vast dynamic cycle. Micro-feedback loops running within macro-feedback loops, spanning all of space-time. Change one thing, and you affect everything else. Contact leads to feeling right away. Birth leads to old age over decades. Feeling causes craving, obvious. Clinging causes existence, mysterious. But they're all part of one integrated system. Dependent origination is the skeleton key behind every other teaching. The non-self teaching. That's dependent origination applied to identity. There's no separate self, just a flow of causes and conditions creating the illusion of a permanent you. Karma and rebirth? Dependent origination shows how intentions create consequences across lifetimes. Not because some cosmic judge is keeping score, but because consciousness and karma mutually condition each other. Emptiness. Since everything arises from conditions, nothing has independent existence. Later, Mahayana thinkers like Nagarjuna took this principle and built a whole philosophy of emptiness out of it. His entire Mulamadhyamaka Karika is an elaboration of dependent origination. Mindfulness practice. It targets the gap between contact and feeling, weakening the chain's automatic progression. When the Buddha said, "Whoever sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma," this is what he meant, not one teaching among many. The principle underlying all of Buddhism, the skeleton key that unlocks everything else. The Buddha also teaches dependent origination in reverse, from the Nidana Samyutta. With the fading away of ignorance, karma formations cease. With the cessation of karma formations, consciousness in this mode ceases. With the cessation of consciousness, body-mind ceases, and so on, all the way to the cessation of suffering. You don't have to fix all 12 links at once. Seeing through ignorance and breaking craving already changes the whole system. The water cycle begins to slow. The machine begins to wind down. We've mapped how suffering arises. But how does liberation occur? If everything is conditioned, where does wisdom come from? Where does compassion come from? What conditions those? The Upanisa Sutta extends the 12 links with 11 more. What's called transcendental dependent origination. Listen to this. Suffering conditions faith, faith conditions joy, joy conditions rapture, rapture conditions tranquility, tranquility conditions happiness, happiness conditions concentration, concentration conditions insight into things as they are. This insight conditions disenchantment, disenchantment conditions dispassion, dispassion conditions liberation, and liberation conditions knowledge of the destruction of the mind's defilements. The Buddha is showing that liberation isn't separate from the conditioned world. It arises from within it. Suffering itself, when clearly seen, becomes the condition for faith. Faith in the possibility of freedom. The nightmare contains the seeds of awakening. Samsara and nirvana aren't separate realms. They're two ways of seeing the same reality. The Buddha isn't giving you an escape hatch from reality. He's showing you that reality, fully understood, liberates itself. You now understand the 12 gears in the machine. You've seen the algorithm that creates suffering. What will you do with this knowledge? Start observing. Pick one link that resonates with you. Day 1. Observe Vedana, feeling. Throughout your day, catch the automatic tag your mind puts on experience. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Day 2. Watch for tanha, craving. See the constant background of wanting experience to be different. Day 3. Identify upadana, clinging. What do you organize your life around? What would devastate you to lose? That's your clinging showing itself. You don't have to succeed. The point is to see. Simply observe. When you see the mechanism clearly, it begins to loosen its grip. Through understanding, not force. If these practices feel small, remember, liberation begins with small seeing, not dramatic effort. Because dependent origination can only operate while ignorant of itself. Dependent origination is the Buddha's most complete teaching. It shows us how we arrived at suffering, why we keep arriving at suffering, how to end suffering, and what reality actually is. Everything else the Buddha taught is a different angle on this one insight. The monk in our sutta began with questions about who and whose. He ended in silence, because he finally saw. The question itself is the problem. There is no who experiencing the 12 links. There are only the 12 links, arising and passing in mutual dependence. When you see this, really see it, the whole structure begins to collapse, not into nothingness, but into freedom. The Buddha spent 45 years after his awakening teaching, helping, serving. This wasn't some detached zombie walking around. This was consciousness liberated from the confines of craving, flowing naturally like water finding its level. That's the promise. Not escape from life, but the fullest possible engagement with life, free from the tyranny of ignorance. You now have the map. The path is yours to walk. If you want to go deeper into these concepts, check out my videos on the 5 aggregates, the 4 noble truths, Buddhist emptiness, and karma, and rebirth. They all connect back to this teaching. Thank you for giving me your attention today. It's the most precious thing you have. May you see clearly. May you be free.